Okay, good morning, everybody. Glad to see you. Got some new faces this morning. So I'd like to start with that with kind of an introduction. Jim, I know you were here before, but do you want to kind of introduce yourself? You're fairly new to participating with us.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Good morning, everybody. I'm Jim Craig. I'm the Dean of Business, Information Technology, and Hospitality Leadership at PMAS Community College. Great to be here.
And you have an awesome cybersecurity program and an IT program doing some pretty amazing stuff.
We do. We just have some good news too. Yesterday, we just got our final designation from NSA. We're already an NSA designated program, but now we are a center of academic excellence across the whole college for our cybersecurity program.
Awesome. Well, when I have to hear more about that, Jim, in the future, obviously I know, but a lot of other folks wouldn't know about that. So um, let's see. Let me change this here. There we go. Okay. So let's see who else we had. A couple of people I thought I saw this morning. Mitch, I know you've been here, but do you want to introduce yourself again, please? Mitch, are you there? Oh, I know you were going to be on mute. Let's see what we got else. I think I saw somebody else here. Robin, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
We can.
Hi, my name is Robin Dumas. I work here at SEGO in the Community Development Department, and I am just starting to tap into the meetings and learn more about the efforts around broadband access and just helping SEGO carry things forward.
Sounds great. Thanks, Robin.
No problem.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody else that's new this morning? I don't think so. Shamia, is that correct pronunciation?
Hi, Stephen. Thanks for asking. It's actually Shamaya.
Okay.
And yes, today is my first time, and I'm so happy to be here. I work for an organization called Inventive Technologies. We cover one of the 8 populations from NTI broadband perspective. I work for an organization that provides prison technology. Happy to be here, and I'm here to learn.
Is that a commercial or a nonprofit group?
It is a for-profit group. It's commercial business.
Okay. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
I think that's everybody that's new today. Did I miss anybody? Okay. Well, let's move on. Again, a reminder, if you have not filled out the Google form with your contact information, please do so. It just helps to know who's who and how to reach people and how to contact folks and so forth. So I'd really appreciate it if you would do that. Again, just a reminder is after our meeting that we do kibitzing with colleagues, which is just an informal session. We stop the recording and people chat, and it might be 5 minutes, it might be an hour, it could be 2 people, it could be 10 people. We just never know. But this is basically informal if people want to hang out. And then let's see, moving on. Of course, I want to thank our sponsors, Valley Telecom Group, Care First Health Plan, Valley of the Sun, United Way, and so Triad Wireless, Karen Ziegler Consulting Services, and so forth. So I really appreciate all your support. And moving on, so let's start with some updates from ACA, and we have lots of folks. And so, Karen, I'm going to let you kick it off and then see where that goes.
Actually, Steve, I'm going to be the one talking about the ACA.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, Perla. And again, for those who don't know, Perla just got married, and so congratulations.
Yes, thank you so much, Steve. Thank you, everybody, for The ACA, we have just posted the initial proposal, Volume 2. Volume 2 outlines the long-term objectives for deploying broadband and closing the digital divide, addressing access, affordability, equity, and adoption issues, and enhancing economic growth and job creation, including information that has been developed in the 5-year action plan. Everybody can access the initial proposal, Volume 2, through our ACA website, and I will put the link here as soon as I'm done talking. There's 3 ways that you can submit feedback for us. There's a PDF, as well as emailing that PDF to us, and a section below to comment for feedback. The feedback is due by December 6th. We still have Volume 1 up on our website with the list of unserved and underserved broadband serviceable locations with the community anchor institutions list as well. And people can still provide any feedback if you're wanting to read the I believe 300-page document. It is a pretty lengthy one, plus the Volume 2. But of course, we're willing to take any feedback still, and you can email that to us.
Good. You just answered my question about people can still provide input on Volume 1.
Of course, the only thing is that we don't have a comment section anymore for it, but we will take it via email.
Okay. Thank you.
And yeah, that is it. Thank you so much. I'll drop that link here in the chat right away.
Okay, so Pearl, can you just comment quickly that you have several open positions that you're looking for people for? Could you just talk about those quickly?
Yes, I would be more than happy to. We also have Erin Laredos on the call. I actually want to promote that first. Erin Laredos is our new digital equity program manager. We are super excited to have her on board. I know last time, Steve, you were trying to get it out of me to who we have hired, but we have her here, and we are super excited to have her join us, and that she's already doing an amazing job. She's been really awesome. And if she wants to give a little introduction, I know a lot of you guys, she's joined the call already, and you guys might know her, but she's been really awesome so far. Erin, if you want to say anything.
Thanks so much, Pearl. I really appreciate that. Yep, I just changed the acronym after my name. That's really the difference. But no, I mean, it's been wonderful so far. You know, there's a lot, obviously, to get caught up on. And I'm looking forward to, you know, putting my mark on everything that the ACA is working on. DE plan, of course, is my main focus. And if I am slow to respond to emails, it's because I'm reading that 200-page document. Yeah, I'm just excited to still be part of this group. I noticed I'm still listed under the State Library on your agenda too.
I thought about that last night, that I hadn't.
I may not be the best person to talk about that anymore, but you can keep my my name over on the ACA side. Thanks so much.
I will take care of that.
And
I'll that last night.
No worries. I will put my new email in the chat. You can probably guess it because it's the same format as everybody's. It's just erinl@azcommerce.com. And I think that's it for me. Thank you.
And I'll be sending that out to everybody now that she's official. So it's very exciting to have you in that position, Erin.
Thank you, Erin. We do have available positions right now. We have the broadband grants manager position open. We have a senior broadband program manager position open, as well as a community engagement outreach specialist. And I believe those are all the updates that I have. Oh, and then Steve, I mean, this one's for you. I feel like you should take lead for this one. The study session that's happening on Volume 2, that will be with Sandeep and Nicole.
Yes, and I was going to talk about that later, but as long as you brought it up, then I think hopefully you've all have received a calendar invite that on November the 27th at noon to 1:30, AZBSN in conjunction with the governor's office and the ACA will be doing what we're calling a study session. And we did that on purpose because this is not going to just be a bunch of presentations, an hour and a half of presentations, but really trying to give an overview of the meat and potatoes of that plan, and then be able to provide opportunity for discussion or input and so forth. And we'll see how it goes. If we need to do another one, we'll do another one. And once the digital equity plan is released, then we will do similar kind of thing, one or more workshops once that plan is released. So, because we've got some fairly short deadlines for that. Perla, can you just talk about what's the deadline for the digital equity plan that needs to be done by? Is it December 21 or
So
something?
I can actually take that if you're okay with
Okay.
it.
Oh, yeah.
So
Sorry,
so
Aaron.
yeah, so we are working to have that posted by mid-December for public comment, and then there will be a 30-day comment period on that, just like with the BEAD documents. And then after that, then it gets submitted to NTIA. And so yeah, we're still finalizing the draft, and so some of those dates are still pending based on that, but those will be available as soon as possible. And I think it would be great, to have some kind of session like that as well for the DE plan. I agree.
Okay. And I believe that you have a deadline for NTIA that you have to have that plan submitted, am I correct? December something, 21st or something?
So it'll be posted for public comment mid-December, and I apologize, I don't have the exact date in my mind right now. But then it's 30 days, so it's January that it goes to NTIA. Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
And similar to the BEAD plan as well, where we have to submit the entire thing by December 27th. And once it's in, it's in.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Perla, for being here today. I don't know, Karen, are you still online? Do you have anything that you want to add?
I'm still here, Steve. Nope, I think Perla's got it.
Yep, I think by golly, I think she's got it. And Candace, I see you're online. Did you want to add anything, or don't mean to put you on the spot, but.
Hi, good morning. No, I think Perla did a great job just kind of sharing where we're at. And
Okay.
we're just really excited Aaron's on board. So thank
By
you.
golly, I think they're excited to have you, Aaron.
Sounds
Okay.
like it.
So moving on, as we mentioned that we're going to do the special study session. I did send a calendar invite to everybody yesterday, and hope you will all plan to attend. And let's see. So let's get into, we have a couple one presentation and so forth. So let's just jump into our presentation this morning. And I want to introduce a man who in this group hardly needs any introduction, is Rory Conaway with Triad Wireless. And as I said in my note that I sent out, that Rory has been a great participant in this task force. He's a sponsor, stepped up to be a sponsor of the task force, and he's doing great stuff around the state. I know that there's some folks that would give great testimony to the work that he's been doing. So with that, Rory, I'm going to just turn it over to you and let you do your thing.
Oh, all right. Thanks, Steve. So just a quick background, and I'm
Excuse me, Rory, are you going to need to share?
Maybe, yeah, in a minute.
Okay.
I actually accidentally closed something I was going to share, and now I'm struggling to get it as quickly as I can. So Triad Wireless is we're a wireless terrestrial microwave company across Arizona. We've got infrastructure everywhere from the Grand Canyon down to Nogales. And as much as I love the technology, that ends up being a boring presentation. So I'm going to take it off to a little bit different area this morning, just so that I think it's important to know not so much what we can do technically, but how does it play in this expanded fiber infrastructure that the government has been funding for the last few years. So Triad Wireless, using terrestrial microwave, we're able to quickly deploy bandwidth through different programs. One of the programs that was sponsored by the superintendents of some of the districts with Mylan Eaton from E-Rate was the Final Mile project, which when COVID hit, they were able to quickly get the program up, went out to bid for 10 towns or 12 towns, And we were able to start deploying those within about 4 weeks and covering, I think total number covers about 10,000 or 12,000 homes. We did areas as close as Pima and other areas as far as Cibiq and others where we were able to get bandwidth up to the families very quickly. That is the core nature of wireless is rapid deployment capabilities. Since COVID, our technologies have expanded pretty significantly. Excuse me. I need a cough button on this Zoom. They don't have like they do in radios on radio stations. But over the last few years, and starting from, so Triad started out in 2003, and we did a lot of municipalities and engineering consulting. We were actually Triad Wireless Engineering. And so we've worked with manufacturers and like say municipalities with specialized projects that, for example, one of the airports that we did video surveillance, which required a wireless link infrastructure. They had an airplane that went off the wrong runway and asked us to design a system so that when a plane was on the wrong runway and trying to take off because it ended up crashing, that they got an alert to try to catch the pilots. We did things in North Las Vegas where people poured water into one of the tanks that they had to empty, which is millions of gallons. That required a wireless infrastructure across the entire city to put cameras up and other sensors. I think it was 24 tanks or 23 tanks. And so that was with Homeland Security. We've done other projects with Air Force One, and where they asked us to do a video surveillance, which again requires backhaul, which is where wireless comes in. So moving forward, 2015, we started doing residential and business wireless services across Maricopa County. We were at several thousand customers, and then when COVID hit, pretty much every school district in the known area, including City of Phoenix and other areas, came to us and asked us to start designing and deploying infrastructure to get everybody improved, get services to their residences as quickly as possible. The problem with that was that it was also simultaneously the same time we couldn't get equipment, and because of supply chain issues and so forth. But we literally doubled our number of users in about a year and a half to support all of that. Since the final mile projects, which we've talked about several times, we're actually now taking a lot of orders from all of those small towns that didn't have service. And ironically, we're now able to get fiber speeds into many of the towns through over wireless. Internally, what we do is we're very engineering oriented in the technology area, and wireless microwave has turned into it's almost moving as fast as artificial intelligence is, which we'll cover. But what we're seeing in the future with our system is that the nice part is we don't have some of the limitations that the fiber carriers are placing artificially on their networks. For example, we're seeing in fiber deployments, they're putting data caps, monthly data caps on the users. One of the common numbers is 1.25 terabytes. We've been able to avoid that limitation because we're seeing our average users getting close to 1.25 terabytes. Our peak users are in 4 and 5 terabyte territories nowadays. The other part is, in addition to the rapid deployment, is that our capital expenditure is usually about 10 to 20% of what fiber is, even with the higher speeds. In what we're probably going to see though with fiber, because fiber is, many of them are at 1 gigabit per second. We're pretty sure they're going to eventually get to 10 gigabits per second, although 8 gigabits seems to be a stopping point. We're already working with many of our companies in our industry, and there's about 2,800 WISPs across the country that are doing hybrid deployments of fiber and wireless. Some of them are looking at 25 gigabits per second right now. Others are looking at even beyond that. wireless currently can run up to 2 gigabits per second. We've got that deployed in the Buckeye area, for example, and Mesa, parts of Mesa. In the future, we're going to be in the 5 to 10 gig range within the next 18 months, 24 months at the most. So the real question is then, where does wireless stand as fiber gets deployed around more areas? Well, reality is we're not going to get fiber to everybody. We all know that. And I think the current estimate is that the latest BEAD funding is about 20% of the households that they want to get to. BEAD had a lot of restrictions on what they would allow in wireless, and those restrictions seem to be on a state-by-state basis getting thrown out so that the states can more efficiently or try to cover more people than what wireless can do. Wireless is not a line of sight technology anymore. We actually call it near line of sight, and we have deployments which are non-line of sight. So the remote areas that have high density tree vegetation or hills, things like that, we're able to actually work around some of those areas now with some of the new technologies we have. Going forward, two things are going to happen. Wireless is going to be used as a backup, which we actually have plans in place, because if there is an issue with fiber, as a comparison, in many of the remote areas, fiber is deployed on telephone poles. The reality is the downtime on fiber on a telephone pole is no different than a wireless network, and wireless technologies, and we're getting better. So with redundant infrastructure. We're in the middle of a large rollout, in fact, across the West Valley with that capability. The secondary portion of it is in areas which are fed by fiber. If fiber goes down, and many times for various reasons, whether it's underground or on poles, in some cases it could be several days. I live in Ahwatukee, and we've seen our networks go down for 6-7 days, because to repair a fiber link many times requires permitting processes and digging up streets and so forth, and that is a long-term process. We've actually had fiber in our company down for 3 weeks with Cox one time for that type of a problem. So wireless will have a play moving forward, especially with the newer technologies we're developing. What I want to do is take this slightly off from the fiber concept of the bandwidth. Everything about this group and every other group that we're involved with is getting high-speed connectivity to locations. That's being accomplished. The real problem now becomes, what are we doing with that fiber? And this is where our role as an ISP is a little bit different than just the concept of getting bandwidth to the locations. So what we're running into is we're seeing a consistent increase in bandwidth utilization. We've got great applications. You've got remote medical, obviously remote learning and so forth. But what we're also seeing is, and we're being contacted on projects we had started to actually stop them. Remote learning, for example, we learned the hard way that remote learning did not work as well as children in the classroom. And countrywide, we're paying that price as our children have actually regressed from previous to COVID. But so we're being asked to come up with different ideas to help subsidize that, not subsidize it financially, but as an ISP, because we're exposed to a lot of different groups with different ideas, we're being asked to help out to find a better way to utilize the bandwidth and the infrastructure that we have. The other thing we're seeing is bandwidth increase is significant on the video surveillance areas, and I have to imagine, and my best guess right now is 70% of the people here have some kind of Ring doorbell or other video surveillance structures that need remote connectivity. That's driving a lot of the bandwidth utilization today. The other thing we're starting to do, well, which we do internally and we're starting to see is, and we believe this is going to be a big issue, is security. We're having to analyze everything from top to bottom, because most people do not have secured infrastructure, and there is only limited amount of back-end security from the carriers. So when you throw 100 million computers online with 1 gigabit per second or more, and they're able to become remote bot attack devices, that's a big problem. We have had to do some things in the back end to stop those attacks going outward. Most carriers do not do that, especially if you get public IP addresses. So it's one of those questions like I don't know, the dinosaur movie just hit me, Jurassic Park. We know we can do it. The question is, should we do it? And I think that what we're seeing, because of the request for increased speeds, that we're doing it, but we're not controlling what's happening on the back end, and that's causing us a lot of headaches internally. We're not a big company. We're less than 30 people, but we have 2 people that are doing nothing but security in-house right now, trying to keep control of the network, and people's home computers doing things they shouldn't be doing that most people aren't even aware of. So Triad Wireless, like say, as a back end, as a wireless provider, we're basically a parallel and redundant infrastructure to all the fiber that's being deployed. And in the new areas or more remote areas, we see that that's probably not going to change. The cost of fiber getting there is going to be still excessive. Good example of that is an area we just did called Sibicu, the Sibicu tribe, extremely remote, and it would cost $12 million to bring fiber into that town. Unless government steps up, it's probably not going to happen. We're going to do it for about $100,000 to get bandwidth into the same town. So so we still have tools that are not available. The last thing that last 2 things we're really looking at is cloud computing, and the fact that as everything becomes more centralized, more bandwidth has to go across networks, and it has to go faster, and it has to be more consistent. That's a big area right now, especially if anybody here is using Google Office, for example. That's all online, or Microsoft's Office, and that's the direction everybody's moving. The last thing is, and this is the part that nobody's really addressing yet, or at least we haven't seen it, is artificial intelligence. Even though conceptually it's all about central processing and managing data, we're starting to see artificial intelligence connected to more video surveillance. That means the AI engines are pulling more video data for themselves under the learning process that they're being developed. If anybody's following what's going on in that area, you've got new processors just came out from NVIDIA. You've got 2 or 3 that are coming out through research groups like IBM that have processors that can crunch things with way less power, which means you're also going to start seeing them in IoT devices to help make decisions on site. So, and I'll just finish with the last part about this. Technology in the wireless industry is moving extremely fast right now. Even we're involved in projects of development of next generation things. And it's nothing for us to drop 1 gig on a house anymore. We're pretty much rolling that out across most of our areas, and faster is coming. The real question is, the real point that we're seeing though is everybody wants it. At this point, nobody's using it. The actual average use of a user over a 24-hour period today is about 6 megabits per second. So we've overbuilt a massive amount of capacity. And the question is, how do we need to keep building at that level, or can we look at it more realistically and more financially reasonably to get that cost, to use our money better? Because we're borrowing money to make this happen. It should be used more efficiently so we can go after the 100% coverage as opposed to the 20% coverage, which is on the current roadmaps of most states. So that's pretty much it. I mean, I think I've covered everything, but so if anybody has any questions.
Awesome. Any questions for Rory? Questions, comments?
Rory, quick question on your last point. You talked about overbuilding and current utilization. What do you what's the forecast if you continue that build out 400% utilization from a business strategy perspective?
So ironically, after RDOF was one of the worst funds that could come out. That was previous to BEAD, managed by the FCC. Previous to that was CAF funding. We actually had an area that we have equipment in. We saw funding go to 3 different groups, and now there's the 4th group that's getting more tax dollars to build that same area. Because the money is coming in through so many different government entities, there's no, even though there are some general rules in place, they're just not being followed. We're overbuilding in areas, and there's 2 ways to look at it. There's overbuilding of fiber into areas that have wireless, and there's areas that have fiber, and we're actually putting wireless in there for a couple of reasons. But in the areas with the fiber build outs, when they're on tax dollars, the rules were written very convoluted and very skewed in the CAF and the RDOF funding structures. Like, for example, in RDOF, you had to be a phone, you also had to provide phone service, or else your area was not considered covered. Well, that's silly. Most people have voice over IP. 90% of us use cell phones. Phone service at the residence shouldn't have been a consideration, but it was. Therefore, areas that we covered and many other wireless companies had infrastructure in are being overbuilt by fiber. That's just a waste of money, but it is what it is. Many states, and actually, ironically, our state's one of the best ones because of the, Sandeep and Karen, and they actually came to us and said, "Hey, you guys are in areas that we want to spend money on. Let's talk about it and see what's more reasonable." That's the way to handle it. That's not the way it was handled, because a lot of nationwide companies, larger companies, just went after the money. They didn't care about what happens in the state. Because they have a general plan. So individually, it's not important as long as they're large scale plan. Obviously, we are only in Arizona, so we care more about the state, and because of that, we have more vested interest. For example, we sponsor robotics clubs. I've got programmers that go out there once a week to help the children with learning Python and embedded system programming. So you don't see that from the larger companies. But sorry, getting off topic slightly. But there is a lot of overbuilding, and I think the BEAD group, the BEAD funding is being much better managed than what we've seen in the past, but it's a massive waste of money. Ironically, we actually see a lot of opportunity in the areas that have fiber, and we're getting a lot of calls from people that have actually had it because of the monthly caps, the data caps, and so forth that are artificially placed from the carriers. So, we're gonna have a place in this regardless of whether the fiber gets deployed or not. And the other side of the equation is, since our capex is so small, it's easier for us. It's much cheaper for us to deploy in an area, and we have, with a large reach, we can, it makes financial sense, if that helps. Mark, does that directly answer your question, or did I skip around it?
No, it's fine. I have one follow-up, if I may. On your current deployments that you currently have, where are you positioning yourself from being the primary provider versus a backup in your strategic plan or the geographical areas of Arizona?
We're both. We're kind of in the middle. You've got you've got fiber deployments. In those cases, we're primarily a backup with a handful of customers that would. Here's reality. There's some percentage, 5%, 10%. Whoever the incumbent is, they don't like them for whatever reason that they've had to deal with them. So those customers we get anyway. On the wireless side, the cell phone companies have been improving their residential deployments and speeds in their areas. They still have some issues because they're limited on spectrum, and we're seeing some areas it works great, other areas they get under load and they're not able to hold the speeds that they need to hold, that they're selling. But everybody's just getting better. The equipment's getting better. They're gonna continue to get better. And then the third competitor we have right now is Starlink. I mean, literally everybody and their mom is getting into the wireless bandwidth market. But we still have a lot of rapid deployment processes, construction sites. Obviously, Surprise, Buckeye, and surrounding areas are in the top 5 in terms of population growth. I think Buckeye last year added 100, according to the Census Bureau, added 105,000 people. Surprise is pretty close to that, and we expect Tonopah to probably do the same thing. We're going to have a place in all of those locations. So, excuse me. Is that we're just going to be one of multiple other carriers, I guess.
Perfect. Rory, thank you so much for your presentation. Very informative. Thank you.
Well, in all fairness, I got this last night at about 7 o'clock. So
well,
I didn't have a PowerPoint presentation. I mean, I have a lot of them on the system because I do this in groups, but I didn't have anything formal. I will show one thing though, Steve, if you don't mind. Let me just show a quick picture.
Go ahead.
And to give you an idea, let's see here. This
so
is
Rory, you weren't supposed to give away my secret that this was a last minute
oh, sorry about that.
with you. So, I really appreciate you stepping up.
That's all right. So this is a general idea. This is a general coverage map of Maricopa. It doesn't include all of our smaller areas around the state, but it's pretty extensive. We've built out our own backhaul infrastructure to avoid as much fiber as possible. So it's pretty extensive, and we're still, I think we've got, just to give you an idea, we have 5 or 6 towers under construction right now that should be finished in the next 45 days. So we're not slowing down, and opportunity still keeps expanding as to groups that do need services. So
can I ask a couple of questions, Rory?
Yeah.
One is, what are you using, licensed spectrum or unlicensed spectrum, and what band spectrum are you using for your solutions?
The answer to that is yes. We use all of that. However, what has happened in Phoenix is if you're using GAA licenses, for those of you who don't know, the CBRS band is at 3.5 to 3.65 gigahertz. There are 15 10 megahertz channels that we get to share. 8 of them, however, have been purchased by various carriers, and that spectrum, when I say it's shared, basically when your radio turns on, it talks to a database and says you can't use the channel in this direction over this area, and the idea was to avoid interference. Here's the reality: the database doesn't work. We had CBRS in Phoenix, and in the last 30 days, it just got crunched. There is no free spectrum for CBRS in Phoenix metro area any longer. We've actually just got done pulling down all of our CBRS radios. In remote areas, it's still great, and it will continue to work just fine. However, the FCC opened up another 1,200 meg of spectrum in the 6 gigahertz band, and we have a lot of equipment in those bands. But the wireless industry is using 60 gigahertz, 70 gigahertz, 80 gigahertz, and obviously all the licensed spectrum. So we use everything, whatever works the best in that area. We're very vendor agnostic in that play. The sad part, though, is the majority of unlicensed equipment is going to end up moving towards Tirana in the short term, because right now they're the big gun, and they're also the most expensive by multiples over what we currently use. But if you're not at least playing in that field, you're going to have some problems. So if anybody wants to talk about that offline, there's a lot of stuff going on in that area.
So when you the major cell phone providers, Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T, they're using these 5G fixed wireless solutions now to households, right? So what?
Yeah, so
how
right,
do-
they're using their licensed spectrum.
Yeah. And so how would you compete with them in terms of cost and bandwidth and
Oh man, you're letting out my Black Friday special. So we actually have a $50 50 meg package coming out this next week for Black Friday. So that's how we compete with them on the lower end. But we actually have, in all of those areas, we have significantly more capacity than that. So like I say, we've got up to 2 gigabits per second in certain areas.
But would that be unlicensed wireless? Then you're doing something different than they are, or
They use licensed spectrum that they paid billions of dollars for, but
Right.
it's very narrow banded in the sense that it's they paid for it in 10 meg sections. They're only allowed, I think, up to 4 in any area, or 4 channels, and they're very good at making that work efficiently. The reality is, we saw when COVID hit, we saw a 400% increase in bandwidth. If anybody here had cell phones or had Apple phones back when AT&T first came, did the video conferencing on the Apple phone, and AT&T was the only carrier, that network got crushed, and it took several years for the carriers to get sufficient bandwidth to even have that application. Because so many people are now working at home or remotely learning, bandwidth utilization went up 400% in 30 days when COVID hit. As soon as everybody got pushed home, our bandwidth requirements went nuts. That has not slowed down as a rate in terms of how much bandwidth we deliver today. And we used to see 20% increase every year of how much bandwidth we had to provide. We're now seeing 100%. And so the cell phone companies are going to have a hard, they're having a hard time keeping up. They're building out, but they're still going to have a hard time keeping up with bandwidth requirements with their limited spectrum, basically.
So, but you're using unlicensed spectrum that can you deploy that in metro areas without issues that you
Yes.
issues?
Oh yeah, we can deliver hundreds of we can do 2 gigabits per second in unlicensed in the middle of Phoenix and Mesa.
There's no regulatory controls on that about whether it's unlicensed or
No. No.
But for the this is Mark, but for BEAD, they have deemed unlicensed to be unreliable. Are you expecting states to in any way waive that, or will the only fixed wireless access funded under BEAD have to be in licensed spectrum?
Actually, ironically, there's several states, Alabama, Texas, I think Texas, I'll have to confirm it, but they're actually opening up to unlicensed because it's not unreliable. I mean, Mark, you worked with Tirana, it's
Right.
not an unreliable technology, whether it's licensed or unlicensed at this point.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
It depends on the implementation, and a quality implementation on unlicensed is fine to me. But will BEAD programs allow for it?
I've been told that some of the states, and I'm getting this from other colleagues, that they're basically telling the FCC, stay out of this. In that they're allowing the states themselves are going to, under some condition. And Karen, you might be able to tell more about this, but there's some loophole that the states are going to let them use unlicensed. Bottom line, there's not enough spectrum in CBRS is the problem. Not for the speeds, for the basic speed of 100 meg. There is not in Metro Phoenix, but in remote areas. But everything I'm seeing is that states are finding a way around this to be able to use unlicensed spectrum.
Certainly hope so. But even though CBRS is what I would call lightly licensed, the GAA, if you don't have a license, but you're just using the allocation servers to get a channel, my understanding was that was considered unlicensed use in CBRS unless you were paying for the next tier up.
Actually, I think they cleared that, Mark. I think, and as far as I know, and look, man, you know more about this. The GAA is okay in CBRS. It's outside that spectrum that there's having issues.
Okay, that's a surprise, but let's run that one to ground. That would be an important difference.
Yeah, I'm under the impression that it's okay to use it, but I might be wrong. I mean, I'm not the regulatory expert by any stretch.
Well, but I am hoping there will be the flexibility for states to take exception and allow unlicensed spectrum, with whatever performance requirements, applied over it, because it's silly the way that they have discriminated against unlicensed spectrum in the general BEAD regulations.
Why don't they license this spectrum that's currently unlicensed? What's the reason they don't?
It's not subject to auction. It's not developed in that way. If they put a big swath of 6 gigahertz, just like for Wi-Fi, there's unregulated bandwidth at 2.5 and at 5 gigahertz. These are bands that are open and arguably have brought great public benefit because your Wi-Fi routers don't need licensed spectrum, so there's a balance to be had between that. But the big swath of 6 gigahertz that Rory refers to is perfect. There is some other activity in there, but it's still a broad swath of broadband capable frequencies that are unlicensed, and that has advantages. So in CBRS, it's kind of a mixed model. There's a GAA class of service where you just have to pay $1 or $2 a month per customer for access to the geographic-based services to allocate your channels. But that it's surprised Rory said that's been resolved. My previous exposure had been that was considered unlicensed, though if you had paid for priority use, you then had a licensed classification in CBRS.
Yeah, we just seem to, like Rory's saying, you can deploy these fixed wireless solutions on this unlicensed spectrum to provide very high bandwidth and at low cost, quick deployments. It seems like the federal government should be looking at that licensing of the spectrum more carefully if they want to be efficient in the way they use this BEAD money. Right?
Yeah, but if you think about smaller ISPs, can they afford the lawyers and the participation in the very complex licensing that the FCC manages? When you declare a band license, then it's subject to auction, and you need teams of lawyers on your side to participate in those. Sorry, Karen, I think I cut you off. Please.
Yeah, sorry, I was just trying to jump in. I think I cut you off, Mark. I just wanted to just allow people to go back and look at volume 2 that was just recently posted. It does talk about the different types of technology and the scoring criteria. And so the state recognizes that fiber is a priority. Those are scored as priority projects. However, knowing that we cannot cover the whole state with fiber and that fiber will be cost prohibitive in a lot of sections of the state, there will be wireless technology, and there is an option for a hybrid solution of licensed and unlicensed. So it is in volume 2. So I encourage you all to go take a look at it. And then if you have any questions, I'm not the engineer, but Sandeep, I'm sure, will be happy to walk you through how the unlicensed and licensed technology works.
So Karen, I'm glad you jumped in. I actually just printed it out. I'm getting ready to start burying through it. can you maybe point to where that section is at? Please?
Yes, well, the subrecipient selection, it's a mouthful, criteria is on about page 50. Well, it's actually a little bit higher than that. But it is requirement 8, subrecipient selection process. So I would read through that, and that's how the state is proposing to rate those applications, score those applications, when they come in. And keep in mind, those project areas have not yet been defined. Those will be defined by the time, we open all of this up.
So do you have the flexibility, and like Mark was saying that, do you have that CBRS? We're locked into licensed CBRS on wireless, theoretically. So are you saying that BEAD now has the flexibility for the state on a state-by-state basis to be able to look at other technologies if it's the only option you have?
Yeah, so let me caution by saying this is the proposed volume 2. It's been submitted to NTIA for a preview. NTIA still has to approve the approach that the state wants to take. So I don't want to, say for sure that that's what the final outcome will be. But if you, like I said, you read through the selection criteria, it breaks it into 2 parts: priority projects, which are fiber, and then the non-priority projects. And there will be a cost analysis done on, those areas that are just, like I said, cost prohibitive to put fiber in. And then the state will look at other technologies to serve those areas, because the mandate is to serve those underserved locations.
So here's the big question. If you can cover more areas with wireless versus fiber, is the target to get to a higher percentage of coverage, or is the target to get fiber and then just fill in where you can't get fiber that go above the threshold numbers that you picked?
So, that's a really good question, Rory. I think we have to wait to see what those applications look like. There will be decisions made based on, the best solution for the state to give the coverage that we need. We are required to serve those unserved locations and then underserved locations. And as I said, the priority is fiber, but there will be a cost threshold line that's drawn based on all the analysis that's done. And then when it starts to bump above that line, they'll look at other alternatives. So, like I said, that's still very fluid at this time. Those cost analysis have not been completed, so it's hard to say, how it's going to shake out, with these project areas in the state. And again, NTIA still has to approve this approach for the state.
So, but would you sacrifice funds used for 500 fiber customers to cover 5,000 wireless customers?
Rory, I can't answer that.
That's what I'm trying. Okay, that's okay. That's, we'll see. All right, thank you.
Yeah, like I said, that's not my call, but that is something that we would really like for you and others to submit in the comments, because you are the experts in your field. And so when you see things in that volume 2 that you think there may be a better approach, those are the kind of comments that, we're looking for.
I honestly, to me, it's a financial calculation. It's number of users versus how much money you have. So Anyway, thank you. Always fun to talk to you, Karen.
Thanks,
So
Rory.
a couple of quick things, Rory. So the governor's office does have their task force, and infrastructure is one of those teams. If you're not participating in that group, you can. Those groups are still open. So this might be a good thing for you to bring up some discussion in that
How
group.
Can you forward information on that? I'd love to be on the panel, that group. Actually,
it's in. So this is for you and for John Kelly. John, you still there? Oh, he may be gone. But the job positions that are open for ACA.
Sorry, Steve.
Yeah.
I'm here.
So John, you asked about posting those job positions. Well, if you look in the email, the two emails actually I sent this week, one announcing this meeting and also on the 21st, that you'll find the links to those job positions. And then also, Rory, to your question, that information about the governor's task force and being able to join that group is also in my email. So you'll find all those links and contacts and all of that stuff in the emails that I've recently sent out.
I got it. Thank you, sir.
You bet. So a couple of
Steve,
other
this
quick
is
things.
Shamaya. Are you able to send me that email since I just recently joined the group?
I will, and I'll make sure that we also get you added to our email list.
Sir.
Okay, so the other thing is, Ash, if I can put you on the spot for a minute, and you can choose to not respond, but since you're kind of our AI guy here, particularly in this task force, if you have any thoughts about Rory's comments regarding AI.
Thanks, Steve. No, I don't. It's not because I don't have any comments. It's because I was in and out of the room.
Oh, okay.
my apologies for it.
Okay. But Rory, that might be somebody that you want to connect with.
You know, I did miss one thing, Steve. I'll mention it really in passing.
Sure.
We are working with Sun Corridor, and we have started rolling out free internet to the Maryvale area, mostly in one small area, but we're getting ready to expand it out for under their grant for thousands of families across those areas. In fact, our flyers should be done here in a few days. So, and that's Derek's project with Sun Corridor. So
Yeah, good that you mentioned that.
Yeah, I don't know why I skipped over that. That was my mistake. I think we actually have 20 active people, but we just did 8 more yesterday, and they're scheduling. But I'll tell you one thing for the digital equity people. Here's what we ran into that caught us off guard. 80% of the people we talked to did not speak English. That was our first thing, but we have multi-language people in house. The second thing is many people who don't speak English are concerned that we're sharing this information with immigration. That was actually our biggest hurdle to get over, and we're still dealing with that particular issue. So they're concerned that our data goes to the federal government.
So Rory, one of the things that I'm thinking, I was going to do it maybe the week after Thanksgiving, but maybe we'll wait a little bit, is to actually convene a panel of ISPs and broadband providers to have a discussion about 2 things. One is the role of ISPs and broadband providers in digital inclusion, and what many of them are, like you and others who are doing a lot in that space, and what can or should they be doing. And Mark, maybe this is also a discussion for the provider group that you want to develop. And related to that is cybersecurity and what can and should providers, what are they doing, what can they do, and what should they be doing in that space, particularly as it relates to all the folks that like you were just talking about. So I'm thinking that a panel, because there's people, Jenny Rickle, I see Jenny's online, and they're doing a lot in the space with digital inclusion, and you and a number of others. And so it's from my perspective, it's an important issue, and certainly is something that we should look at with the digital inclusion plan. So anyway, that's that. So we need to move on because we're running out of time here pretty quickly. Mala, are you still there? Mala, are you still there?
She had to leave.
Okay. Cindy, you want to give us a quickie update?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I'm Cindy Hogan. I'm the chair of the Arizona Digital Inclusion Network. We're meeting today at noon. And our topic, let me just pull it up. Our topic for today is we're going to be brainstorming as a group around public awareness awareness to be sure that our communities know how important digital inclusion work is. I still believe there are many who do not understand how our society and democracy are being impacted by the digital divide. And we're going to be looking for ideas about plain language ways to present our message. And so I will put, if you want to attend that meeting, I will put my email in the chat so that you can call me you can contact me to get the link. That's today from 12 to 1, and our group meets every other Thursday from 12 to 1. So I'll put that all in the chat. Thank you.
Thanks, Cindy. Okay, any other info? John, did you have anything that you want to talk about with the legislature?
Oh boy, not really. I've had a lot of meetings with legislators over the last couple weeks, and the more I know, the less I know. We have an open congressional seat. We have at least one and possibly two members of the legislature that want that seat. And one of those is a Speaker of the House. That could affect the schedule of the legislature, either negatively or positively, depending on your perspective. I think last week we talked about the Arizona Commerce Authority is up for renewal. That will be a very hot topic. I discovered that Representative Michael Carbone, who was honored last night at the Arizona Technology Council Celebration of Innovation as legislator or representative of the year, will be carrying the bill to sponsor the continuation. He's a fine legislator, fine man, and so he'll be the source of our wisdom on this.
Okay, thanks, John. Mark, I see you put in the chat the telehealth and library session that's happening today at noon. You want to comment on that at all?
Yes, Kirk on. He should speak to that perhaps. If
I don't think he was there today.
Okay, sure. So Kirk, under the Big Data Southwest banner, has a annual, though it's moved around for the time of year that it occurs, AI and high performance computing and cloud and broadband related summit. The name varies a little, is out in Goodyear on December 12th this year, an all-day event. It's it's on the 13th in Goodyear. There's a golf tournament option on the 12th. And so there is a discount code for ATIC and AZBSN for 50% off the, I think it's $399 rack rate registration. So it's half off of that. And there will be a breakout session from the main program for a broadband provider convening on site at the conference late in the afternoon. Haven't quite finished arrangements for that.
Okay.
Thank you.
All righty. Any other announcements? Gabby, I know that you and I have had some conversations. You want to just talk briefly about who you are and what you represent?
Well, thank you, Steve. First of all, you're a wonderful coordinator. Hello, everyone. I'm Gabriella Yanez, and I work for Mr. Alan Keel. Mr. Keel is president of Certified Information Security. And if you've heard of Alan Keel and you've received one of my phone calls, it's pleased to meet you through Zoom. And Steve Peters, thank you so much. You're a wonderful coordinator. Well, Mr. Keel, his company, he is the designated source for the NIST Cybersecurity Framework Lead Implementer. And if you go to the Department of Homeland Security and CISA's website, under their cybersecurity career initiatives, type in NIST cybersecurity and Mr. Keel will pop up. And if I can answer any of your questions, I'd be happy to do so. Just my phone number, I'll put it in the chat, and my email, and I look forward to getting better acquainted.
Great, thank you, Gabby. And of course, Manny, that might be somebody that you want to connect with. If you're still there, Manny.
I'm here, and absolutely, Steve.
Okay. All righty. Any other announcements today? Going once, going. So Dave Miller, I didn't get you to introduce yourself. Can you tell people who you are, please? Dave, are you still there? Okay, well, I'm going to stop recording. And if anybody wants to stay online,